Hey guys, thanks for watching DIY Brian. In this video, I'm going to be removing the steering wheel of a 2005 Chevy 2500 HT pickup to replace a broken clock spring. Alright guys, so there's two types of clock springs that you can replace on this truck. Now, you can buy a clock spring that's from Dorman, and you can buy a clock spring right from the dealership and get a Chevy clock spring. So, there's two big differences between this. A Chevy clock spring is going to come with the entire wiring harness that goes to it, where the Dorman is not going to have all these wires here. You actually disconnect this portion of the harness, which makes the installation a little bit easier, a little bit quicker, and you don't have to replace all the wiring. However, I've had lots of problems with those. I strongly recommend actually going with a genuine GM part that replaces all this wiring and install the new clock spring with it. Alright guys, so in addition to your basic screwdrivers, your pliers, sockets, impact gun, the basic tools obviously that you need when doing repairs, you need some additional tools. And what those tools are to do this clock spring is you need a set of snap ring pliers like this. Now, I'll put some links below the video so you guys can see how much these cost and kind of where to get them. I kind of like to use these little hook tools when undoing the wiring harness, all the little pigtails and everything. A lot easier to undo the pigtails with a hook tool like this. And then one of the most important things that you need to remove the steering wheel is a steering wheel puller. Now this kit from OTC comes with a lot of stuff in it. So you've got all the different adapters for the different style of steering wheels that are out there. Alright guys, so before you get started on this job, it's important that you have those tools ready to go and have your parts ready to go so you don't get stuck in the middle of the job not being able to complete it, not having the right tools. Alright, so let's pull this thing in my garage here and get this thing replaced. This video is primarily going to be helpful if you have an airbag light on, or your steering wheel controls are not working, or if you just need instructions on removing the steering wheel. Before I removed the steering wheel, I wanted to get the wheels perfectly straight. It's also a very good idea to completely read the instructions that come with the clock spring so that you fully understand how to do this. Make sure you disconnect the negative battery terminal before you get started removing the steering wheel or working on the airbag system. Now it's time to remove the plastic around the steering column. Typically you have screws on the bottom side of the column that need to be removed. Then move down below and remove the screws on the plastic cover below the steering wheel and remove the cover. Next, remove the tilt wheel lever by pulling it directly out with a set of pliers. Then start pulling the steering wheel cover off with a screwdriver and a hook tool. You'll also use your hands to pull on the locking tabs to remove the cover. Be careful not to break the alignment locking tabs. Now it's time to remove the airbag from the steering wheel. Using two Allen wrenches, push them into the two small holes on each side of the steering wheel. I used my knee to push and hold the left Allen head in the steering wheel, and I used my hand to push the right side to remove the locking mechanism to remove the airbag. Disconnect the airbag by squeezing the two locking tabs on the side of the connector. Remove the connector, then disconnect the steering wheel control harness with a small hook tool. Remove the red horn wire by turning it counterclockwise, then pull it directly out. Grab your impact driver and loosen up the steering wheel nut. Now insert the OTC steering wheel removal tool into the two holes in the steering wheel and align up the removal tool correctly. Get the tool finger tight, then use your impact driver to remove the steering wheel like this. Next, grab your snap ring pliers and remove the locking clip. Next, you have to remove the metal shield under the column using an extension, a 10mm, and an impact driver. Now it's time to remove the wiring. There are a lot of wiring plugs that come with the new clock spring. Be careful to remove all the wiring clips, wire straps that pertain to the clock spring. The main harness has two locking mechanisms that you have to use a lift and slide lever on the top of the connector to remove. Just be careful to take your time to carefully remove all the wiring without breaking any of the locking tabs. If you are replacing the clock spring with a Dorman, you'll skip this step. Now line up the new clock spring with the shaft and start hooking up all the wiring. Use wire ties to secure the harness back to the original position. Make sure that you get each connector plugged in all the way. If it doesn't lock into place, you could have a connection issue that'll cause you problems. And then reinstall the plastic cover over the column. Once you have the cover back on, remove the orange alignment tab by snapping it off like this. Make sure the arrow on the steering wheel aligns up perfectly with the notch on the steering shaft. Install the nut and tighten it down with your impact. Make sure to check the torque using a torque wrench. Now hook your wires back up and install the airbag. Align it up with the holes in the steering wheel and snap it into place. Reinstall your lower dash cover and install the tilt wheel lever by pushing it firmly back into the lever socket. Hook your battery terminal back up. Make sure you get the terminal on tight, but don't strip it out or over tighten the terminal. Alright guys, moment of truth here. We've got the clock spring replaced. We're going to take this thing for a test drive and see if we've got it fixed. The issue we were having before is the steering wheel controls weren't working correctly and the airbag light was on. Okay, airbag light did exactly what it's supposed to, flash and then go out after it's been reset. So we'll take this thing for a test drive and make sure everything's working correctly and we don't run into any issues.